They tried to take my son. Not with guns, not with muscle, but with paper. The kind of paper that hides behind the word bylaws. The HOA thought they could twist words into weapons. They slapped me with violation notices, stacked fines high as a wall, and then delivered the real threat. Your son is living in a non-compliant environment. Failure to comply will result in legal action, including possible custody review. That's when I knew this wasn't about grass height or paint colors. They were coming for the only thing that mattered more to me than breathing. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. My name's Ethan Hayes, Navy SEAL. I've been through deployments, hostage rescues, and missions where silence was the only thing between life and death. I thought coming home meant peace. Barbecues on Sunday, my boy pedaling his bike down the street, quiet nights with the windows open. But peace isn't what you get when a corrupt HOA decides your family is their new target. It started small, a letter taped to my door, non-compliant mailbox. They wanted it painted beige instead of navy blue. Fine, cosmetic nonsense, but I let it slide. 2 weeks later, another violation. Improper fence height. My fence had been there since before the HOA was formed. Then came a fine for toys left in yard. They photographed my son's basketball hoop and red plastic bat like it was evidence in a crime scene. At first, I laughed it off. Some people need power like oxygen, and the HOA president, a sharp-tongued woman named Claudia Mercer, thrived on it. But laughter turned to anger the day I got a certified letter threatening liens on my house. And then came the one that changed everything. A notice citing domestic environment concerns, with an underlined warning that the board would pursue appropriate legal measures to protect the well-being of a minor. Translation: they were threatening to take my son. I dealt with terrorists who hid behind civilians, warlords who used children as shields, and here was Claudia Mercer, hiding behind paperwork and bylaws, trying to tear apart my family. The HOA claimed they had authority under their community charter to report domestic non-compliance to family courts. I knew better. No HOA has that kind of legal power. But what made my blood run cold was how confident they were. Confident enough to escalate from grass fines to custody threats meant they thought they could win. I wasn't about to let them. So I started documenting every letter, every fine, every voicemail Claudia left on my answering machine. I logged dates, times, even the tone of her threats. And when I called an old JAG buddy to confirm what I already suspected, he laughed and said, "They're bluffing, Hayes. But bluffing like that is harassment, and it's criminal if you push back the right way." That's when I stopped reacting like a homeowner and started preparing like a Navy SEAL. I knew they wouldn't stop at paper. The fines piled up faster than junk mail. Claudia sent her so-called inspection officer to circle my house twice a week, jotting down notes on a clipboard like I was a criminal under surveillance. My son asked me why men kept staring at the house, and I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth, that some people will abuse power just to feel taller. It all came to a head on a Saturday night. My boy had gone outside to feed the dog, just a couple of steps into the yard when the shouting began. By the time I got to the front door, I heard him scream my name. Two men, tall, built like ex-bouncers, and dressed in black vests with HOA cop stitched on cheap Velcro patches, had him pinned to the ground. One had his knee pressed between my son's shoulder blades, the other gripping his wrist like he was arresting a grown criminal. By order of the HOA bylaws, this child is being taken for safety violations. One of them barked. That sentence burned hotter than any war zone I've stood in. I stepped out barefoot, no weapon in hand, just the steel discipline and training forged over years as a Navy SEAL. "Let him go," I said. The thug on his back sneered, tightening his grip. "You gonna stop us, old man?" I moved. Fast. My hand shot down, ripping the man's wrist off my son and twisting it until his balance collapsed. A sharp shove sent him sprawling into the dirt. The other thug jumped to his feet, swinging wide, trying to catch me with a haymaker. But I wasn't some panicked dad. I was trained for this. I ducked under the strike, stepped into his center line, and drove my elbow into his ribs. He gasped, staggered back, then came at me again. This time I redirected his momentum, hooked his leg, and dumped him hard onto the ground. Gravel scraped against his vest as he rolled and tried to recover. My son scrambled free and ran behind me, tears streaking down his face, but voice steady. "Dad, don't let them take me." Those words snapped whatever restraint I had left. The man tried to rise, and I finished it with a chokehold from behind. Controlled, precise, not deadly, but enough to make him tap against my arm like a desperate fish. When I let him collapse, he stayed down, wheezing and beaten. The first one tried to come back with a knife he must have hidden in his boot, but I stomped his hand before the blade cleared leather. My heel cracked bone. He howled and clutched his wrist, curling like a wounded animal. I stood over both of them, breathing steady, heart like ice. You just made the biggest mistake of your lives. You came for my son. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. The men wheezed on the gravel, spitting blood, groaning from the takedown. I stood over them, breathing steady. My son clung to my leg, wide-eyed but safe. With one hand, I pulled out my wallet, flipped it open, and held up my Navy SEAL identification, the same badge I swore I'd never need in civilian life. The emblem gleamed beneath the porch light. I don't need your HOA bylaws, I told them, voice low and sharp. I protect my family by training and by the law. The two men froze. One coughed, his lips split, and muttered, "Oh, God, he's military. He's Navy SEAL." The other tried to crawl backward, but sirens cut through the night before he could get far. Two squad cars screeched to a stop out front, red and blue lights washing the houses in color. Officers jumped out, weapons half drawn, hands where we can see them. Mrs. Jensen, my neighbor across the street, came rushing out, her phone still in her hand. "I called them," she shouted, pointing at the two men. "They tried to take his boy. I saw it all." I lifted my free hand high, my badge still visible in the other. "Navy SEAL," I called out steadily. "These men attempted to abduct my son. My neighbor is the witness." The cops scanned the scene quickly. My son pressed against me, the two thugs battered but breathing, Mrs. Jensen waving frantically. The lead officer took my badge, studied it under his flashlight, then gave a short nod. "Understood. Step back with your boy, sir. We'll handle the rest." That's when a silver Lexus screeched up. Claudia, the HOA president, stormed out in heels, barking orders like she owned the block. "This is HOA jurisdiction. Those men were enforcing bylaws. Arrest him. He's the real problem." One of the thugs groaned, spitting blood into the gravel. "Don't mess with him, lady. You don't know who he is. He's Navy SEAL. Fights like the damn military." The lead cop squared his shoulders. "Ma'am, your HOA doesn't override state or federal law. These men are under arrest for attempted kidnapping and assault. If you had any part in authorizing this, you're coming with us." The lead officer didn't waste time. He rattled off the charges like he'd been waiting all night for this. For the two men, attempted kidnapping, state felony carrying up to 15 years, aggravated assault, another 10 years max, criminal conspiracy, 5 years, and impersonating a peace officer, 3 years. Each of you faces up to $25,000 in fines plus restitution. The officers cuffed them hard against the hood of the cruiser. My son flinched at the sound of steel closing, but I squeezed his shoulder, steady and calm. Then the sheriff turned to Claudia. "As for you, we've got evidence tying your signatures to fraudulent fines, harassment, and this unauthorized enforcement stunt. Under state law, that's conspiracy to commit fraud and abuse of authority. You're coming in for questioning." Her face went pale, but she still tried to shriek her way out. "You can't do this. I'm the HOA president." "Not anymore," the deputy cut her off. "HOA rules don't put you above the law." They read her rights on the sidewalk, heels sinking into the grass as the cuffs clicked shut. Civil court moved just as fast. My attorney filed suit for harassment and intimidation through bogus fines, emotional distress, attempting to use my son as leverage, false citations, abuse of authority, punitive damages to punish misconduct. The judge didn't flinch. The court awarded $175,000 in damages plus full reimbursement of my legal costs. Claudia was personally fined and permanently barred from serving on any HOA board in the state. The HOA itself collapsed within weeks. Homeowners revolted, refused dues, and voted to dissolve it entirely. Neighbors told me later they felt liberated when the bylaws were burned in a barrel at the final meeting. I didn't feel like a soldier. I felt like a father who defended his son the only way he knew how, with training, patience, and the law on my side. I looked at my boy and said, "No one's ever taking you from me. Not now, not ever." What do you think, folks? Did Claudia and her fake HOA cops get exactly what they deserved? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what you would have done if they came after your family. The end.